Mo, welcome to the PerformX podcast.
I'm excited to be on. Thank you.
Yeah, very excited to have you on. And I think just to give it a bit of background, I think we've been chatting for a while, and super excited to have you now as part of our advisory board. We've got some really big changes going, pushing PerformX 2025 up a level, and I think having people like yourself on board as a global advisor and a real thought leader is a major step forward for us. Um, and I think something we've connected on is just your huge passion for the industry and driving the industry forward. We had a good chat a few weeks ago on your kind of Dream Friday, and it was just going from one fitness thing into another. And I just thought, yeah, that's exactly the kind of people we want to have involved. They just care so much about fitness. The fitness industry is your life, and I think that's you're living your passion. So I think it's yeah, super great to have you involved.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I actually do recall that. I'm back in DC now. I'm about 2 months outside of DC in Arlington, Virginia. It's also 6 a.m. here. It's early. I believe it's 11 or so, right, in the UK. Is
That's
that
right.
about right? And I remember but I was in my house in New York, and 6 a.m. I was outside in my screen porch, and yeah, you were my first, I think, call of the day before I even start my morning training, which I usually do around 7. But that day, I had the chat with you, catching up on all the new things, Performance Live. I was then on my way out to work out with Jack Daly, the new CEO, not new, he's been CEO for about 2 years, but he bought the company from Randy, and he's the owner and CEO of TRX in that morning. Then in the city, meeting up with High Rocks, and then coming back, having a meeting back in Long Island in the Hamptons with Obey Fitness, and all the calls and things in between. So that was a Friday, right? That was a Friday for me. And when you think about a Friday, I think it was in July, in the summer, a lot of people in their regular jobs would say, I can't wait for Friday, because they're really working for the weekend. I think
Mm.
they're really working for the weekend. And if you are one of those people, it's really hard to be in our industry, because our industry is really about making sure that you feel. We were just talking about this new therapy that you're trying, right? For the next 7 weeks. But when in our industry, it's about making people feel good all the time, not just 5 days a week, not just for 2 days on the weekend, real good all the time. And I think the attitude that we need to have is, we're in this industry because we're passionate about it, because we believe in it, because we practice in it. And when you have that, I think in our job or anything else, a Friday could be the most incredible day of the week, even though it's not the weekend. And that was a really incredible Friday for me.
Yeah, I completely hear that. I think it's something we're told a lot about the event itself is that it's different because those people are united, and that you can kind of sense that energy around the place, that people are, that the fitness industry has evolved and changed a lot over the last 5 years, or especially since the pandemic. And I think, like, the pace it's moving and the brands that are coming into it, and some of the stuff we'll come on to, but I think it's yeah, it's super exciting to unite those people and feel that passion kind of thing. So yeah, super excited to have you involved. And just to frame this conversation, it will be the first of a monthly, as we kind of build up and preview some of the key topics that we'll be covering at the event itself. The focus topic for today is how are digital brands eating Jim's lunch? And I think as a your background leads you perfectly into the person to shape this conversation. I read you started your business to use digital to meet customers where they're at, and shift away from that kind of heavy sales focus. So in terms of this topic, and something that sparked it for me was a conversation that you and I had where we were talking about how um, like, operators and trainers are sort of ignoring the fact that their members' habits have changed so drastically. Um, they are getting their programming done externally through online, be it through expert coaches or YouTube, or and they're getting all their data delivered directly, which is almost bypassing the operator. So through wearables, your auras, your Apple watches, and that's only going to scale the more accessible it becomes through people like Apple. So I think, yeah, talk me through where you see that trend now and how you see it evolving?
Yeah, I think first, in order to do that, you've got to really appreciate the history of the industry. And like so many other areas in life, the last 100 years have been evolving at a pace that we've never seen before in a particular topic. The last 20 years or 30 years with the age of mobile computing, the internet, has evolved even quicker. And I think now with AI, that evolution span is going to be even quicker, where I think you'll see leaps in evolution not happening in 100 years, not every 30 years, but really every maybe 5 or 10 years. And even if you look at digital and computing, I want to come back to the gym here in a minute. But when you look at mainframes in the 40s and 50s, and they literally took up the size of my house, like made these megabit computers. And today, your iPhone is several times leaps and bounds more powerful than a mainframe that took up, rooms before in the 40s and 50s. And then you had the advent of the personal computer, which came out, or the idea of this small calculator, a pocket calculator, wasn't really a pocket calculator. Then you had a connected network with the internet. And now these computers could talk to each other. So you had that revolution. That's all 30-year blocks, right? From mainframes to then PCs to then internet and then mobile computing is roughly about 30-year spans. And again, after mobile computing came in, roughly about 20 to 30 years, you've had this evolution of AI. What you find is there are a couple of things happen. One, you've got a leap in technology, which then creates a whole bunch of suite of services, but it revolutionizes everything that you do, from how you fill up your gas vehicle to maybe not even how you charge your electric vehicle to how make your coffee to, I mean, to just everything about your life. But the leaps are getting bigger and bigger, and I think that time is getting smaller and smaller. So instead of having 30-year evolution cycles, you'll have like maybe 5 or 10-year evolution cycles, and AI is really driving that. To shift gears back to the gym, in a lot of ways, the original gym was formed by the Egyptians about 3,000 years ago. Then the Greeks had their version of the gym or structured workouts about 2,000 years ago. The modern gym kind of really started in Brussels, Belgium, in about the 1800s. But then the modern gym, as we kind of know it today, was really formed in Boston, in the U.S., depending on who you look at. Some people say it's the first YMCA that happened up in Boston. Some people could move the modern fitness revolution to gyms, to maybe the first Gold's Gym, which kind of set off this bodybuilding culture here in the U.S. in Venice, California, which is still around. Other people pointed to the rise of publications with what Joe Weider did. I think, I'm old enough. I was born in 1980. I'm 44 to remember the days how I got my information. And there were really kind of two primary, I'd say three ways. One was in school, you'd go to people that would talk, or you would get kind of trained by your coaches, and you would do, again, these structured workouts, but it was for the whole team. I would pick up a magazine like a Men's Health, and kind of read through articles. Okay, what does a 5-day workout look like? Oh, this is a great bench or chest workout. I would get my supplements through that. Like Muscle and Fitness was another really popular magazine. Or I would go to the gym and talk to people who seemed to be more fitter than me. Right? They were either bigger, they were faster, or stronger. I'd be like, hey, what do you do? And I would kind of do that. The thing that everything from 3,000 years ago to what I just described, it's all structured and it's all pre-programmed, right? None of it is about being personalized. None of it is about, well, what works for me is going to be different than what works for you, even though we're both young, we're both healthy, and we're both already in shape. What technology has done has really increased the adaptation of personalization in a way that our industry has never seen it before. So the challenge that we have is that we're now working and facing institutions that in a lot of ways have legacy infrastructure in place, everything from how the layout of that gym is to how that gym is operated, that have been around for decades and decades, while at this top layer, this age of innovation has happened. And the innovation not only happened from a technological perspective where it changes what you do in back office and operations and processes, but it actually has changed the person. It's changed the consumer. The consumer is different today than they were even 10 years ago. Now, you talked about the pandemic and the post-pandemic consumer. We have not seen in our lifetime, we may never see in our lifetime, an event pull forward that is so it has such a mega influence in our society. I mean, when you look at other events like that before, you may hear our grandparents talk about the impact of World War II. A lot of people call that the greatest generation because World War II changed so much about how we produce goods, about how we live life, about how, women's role in the workforce. It changed laws, it changed socioeconomic things, it created the United Nations. It just our world changed, right? I mean, a lot of things we can point back to, even innovation and technology, changed because of all the resources that were poured into World War II. Well, we are not going to have anything really like that of that scale in terms of a war. Thankfully, I'm hoping it ever again, just because war can be so destructive. So then, what are these moments that you find? And people have thought of, okay, maybe it's the environment, maybe it's AI. Turned out being that it was a pandemic that brought the entire world together, and it changed the same thing as what wars have done before, whereas it brought the entire economic might of the countries together around the world. It forced countries to rethink things like delivery, which I want to, for example, if you think about how do you get medicine from point A to point B, before you might have had laws saying, oh, you've got to go to a pharmacy, you've got to, we can't, we don't have a method to transport this kind of temperature controlled medicine to the person that needs it. Well, guess what? When the pandemic happened, we figured it out. We were able to do that. And not only did the broader economy and delivery and mechanisms and laws and investments and things change, like things like the RNA vaccine was now a technology that's been around for decades, is now more popular. We're not going to know the impact of the positive impact of the pandemic for I think many years, but it also changed the consumer in a couple of ways. I think number one, it forced the consumer to evolve, just like countries and laws and legislation had to evolve. The consumer also had to evolve. So now, how they visit their doctor, how you and I are speaking today on the podcast. I think if this happened before the pandemic, we might have said, okay, Mo, let's do this when I'm in London or when you're here in the US, and we'll do this in person. But now podcasting technology has evolved. But for the consumer, few things that are really meaningful for them that are related to our industry. Number one, most people today, a lot of people, the knowledge workers have the ability to work remote. There's flexibility in that, whereas coming to the office is a requirement and a need because it serves a purpose, but it's no longer a necessity in that if you need to work at home for a day or two, you're able to do that in a lot of ways and be as effective and as comfortable as productive as you would be in the office. That's one thing which I want to come back to. The second one is people's knowledge and awareness of their own health and wellness, right? You even think about people understanding that, okay, wow, so you're telling me that by just washing my hands and when I come inside from being outside, by wearing a mask if I'm not feeling well, right? For the first time, we understood why do a lot of Asian people wear masks sometimes. I personally, I guess I am Asian, but I also never understood why I would see people wear masks at the airport. And really, it wasn't because they were afraid of us. It wasn't because they were afraid of other people around them. It's more because they want to protect the people around them from their own sickness. They
Right.
may not
It's
be
it's
well.
it's
They may feel
manners.
like
Yeah, it's manners, isn't it? Whereas you
it's
think,
just
yeah, yeah,
manners.
right, right, right.
It's totally manners, right? So they're wearing a mask, you're right, out of being thoughtful and have concern over their community, and they're being a good citizen, a good global citizen. They're trying to feel well. But you never realize the impact that something like wearing a mask could do on you, the impact of washing hands could do on you, but also the impact of being healthy and how that really protects you, right? In a lot of ways, the fact that you were healthy, and if you look at the percentage of people who were healthy, who even if they got COVID, actually it did not impact them as significantly as people who might have been overweight, who might have had some conditions as a result of being overweight. They were impacted. I'm being a bit general here because there are all health people who have died, but in general, they were impacted a lot more severely. So you've got this shift in consumer behavior. Consumers, again, they used to go back to magazines, but now they are looking, taking control um, of their health and well-being. But what has changed? You no longer, if you go back to what I just talked about a few minutes ago, you're no longer looking at magazines for information, not
Mm.
flipping through Men's Health or Muscle and Fitness. You're not going to that guy or girl who looks like they're in shape at the gym and ask them anymore, because we also have a lot more anxiety and lack of social awareness, and people just have these things on, these headphones on while they're working out. Um, and you're not just going to the gym because the gym, has someone who is not making a lot of money, had seen a lot of turnover during the pandemic. They're not the experts. So you know where people are going? They're going to social media. They're going to TikTok. They're going to Instagram. They're tying themselves to personalities that they can relate to. And they're going to say, okay, this guy, this woman, this adult is someone who I can relate to because they've shared the same things that I've gone through, and they now have a channel, and they have now achieved this either success or achieved their goal, such as that I relate to it. And I feel like I relate to that person I've become aspirational. So instead of just having an Arnold to look at, you now have millions of Arnolds, and you get to kind of pick the type of Arnold that you want to be aspirational. So that has changed. We talked about, you mentioned wearables, and yeah, now they are not only how they're being influenced has changed, but how they get to that goal has changed, and people are getting more efficient. So I think with the right tools, people have owned themselves. But along the way, the major group who's lost the impact has been the traditional gyms. The traditional gyms has lost influence. They have lost agency over what their members do. And I think that, we're going to be talking a bit more about that, but hopefully that's a long way of saying that, yes, consumers have evolved.
That was a powerful answer. I scribbled a lot of notes there, but yeah, very, very interesting. And I think something leading into my next question, and on that note, I think you talked about the increased awareness of people for their health and the need to be healthier. Um, do you think that data and the amount of data in the wearables is further dialing up the 15% we've already got into fitness? Like people like us, we're getting a lot more insight and we're becoming more obsessed and more aware of ourselves. And is it bypassing the 85%, or do you see that through the evolution of digital that has already happened? Are we seeing more of those people are now conscious of had the data open their eyes a bit more, sort of thing?
Yeah, and just to unpack, I saw the 15% number. The 15% number, you know, is really kind of related, is a UK specific number. It
Yes.
deals with the penetration of the population into the gym ecosystem, and 85% would be the ones who are not participating. In the US, that number is a little bit higher. So it's between 23 and 25%, depending on what kind of set of data you're looking at. But those two countries, maybe you could throw Germany in there, are the highest in the world, right? So that is, we have the highest penetration of people who are actively a member of the gym in the world, and we haven't even cracked 25% in the best market. So there's a lot of room to grow. I think data is a key engagement factor in really helping get that other 85% or 75% or more involved, depending on what market you're looking at. And here's why. We are human beings. And if you look at our most primal instinct, we are driven by need. I mean, our bodies and our minds are going to drive us by what our need is. And typically it is the need for food and to make sure that you survive, and it is a need to procreate, and that's it. And if you have both of those things, and if you are already comfortable, such as that you can go to the grocery store and get, really, you don't have to hunt for your food anymore. You don't have to search for your food anymore. You don't have to build a fast store to then lose them. That's checked. The brain says that's taken care of. And think about meeting people. Yeah, you may not be procreating, but you're meeting people through social media. You think you're engaging with them. I'm not saying it's a healthy form of engagement, but you think you're engaging with them. Well, you don't have to move, right? You could go ahead and sit in your couch. So we are constantly going against physiological and psychological powers that are way more powerful than a digital app today. Like that is exactly what we're going. So what we're in the business about is habit evolution. We're in the
Mm.
business of how do we change your habits? How do we reprogram your neural pathways? How do we reprogram and redial in your day? How do we, and to do that, it's a lot of steps. I mean, you've seen, depending on who you listen to or talk to, some people say you have to do something 300 times,
Mm. Yes.
before it becomes a habit.
66 days
I
and things,
mean,
isn't it? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
that's it. I mean, depending on what number you look at,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
you
yeah.
got to do it a lot of times to do it.
To drill it
But
in.
the hardest step is starting on that. And how do you start on that? So you have to rewire and reprogram yourself to do that, number one. So here's where digital can come in. So we know now that for the most part, and I would say, for most of us in the privileged kind of world, we don't think about hunger, right? We don't think about, especially for the audience that we're trying to get in, we don't think because it's already available. We don't, and we're kind of like okay from a visual perspective. I think and if that drives you, I don't think it's the healthiest way to do it. But younger people today are maybe going to the gym, and Gen Z's going to the gym not because of maybe health, but maybe a lot of it is around just the physical appearances and what they're seeing on Instagram and TikTok and other things. Um, but for that larger piece of the population, what levers do you have to be able to pull so that you get them to move? And we're not talking about getting someone on a 5 day a week, 90-minute a day program. We're just talking about getting them to move for 10 to 20 minutes a day. So here's an interesting study that I would encourage everyone to go look at because it certainly changed how I viewed engagement and retention. And it also had me start Sweatworks 12 years ago in 2012. And there's a study that was, and by the way, it also led to the foundation of Fitbit as
Wow.
well, which is one of the earliest wearables. So there was a study done by Ghent University in the mid 2000s. I believe they completed it in 2008. And what that study did is that it broke people up into three different cohorts. It used a pedometer, by the way, technology that was invented in Japan in the 50s. It's been around for a long time, but it used a pedometer, simple device, and it put people into three groups. The first group simply was said, hey, we're just going to put a pedometer on you, and you're just going to do your own thing. You're just going to walk, right? Your normal life. The second group had a goal of 10,000 steps, and this is where the 10,000 steps number comes from. The second group of 10,000 steps. The third group had a 10,000 step goal, but they also made them part of a community. So they had small groups and they kind of engaged in this 30-day challenge together. Which group do you think did the best? It was the third group,
Yeah.
the group that had the 10,000 steps in the community. But here's the thing, everybody did better. So what
Right.
it showed, and it was a landmark study, and we should probably link it in the episode, but what it did is that, one, if you had something on you that you knew was on you, you are more likely to do more steps. And that's what happens. So the first group, even though they had the least increase in steps, still had an increase over what they were doing before because they were aware that there was a number, that there was a device tracking their steps. The second group established a goal and said, okay, I want to hit 10,000 steps. This is the goal I need to hit. I'm going to try to do that. And then the third group not only had the goal, but also had a community to encourage them, hold them accountable. So that study alone, just that, and this is at this point, almost 20 years old, gives you the answers for increased movement. And we're talking about 2 decades. Now, how much of the broader industry has read that study, dove into it, and said, I need to it doesn't have to be a pedometer. You could apply that towards other things, but it tells you so much about human psychology and what really motivates change. So yes, I do think that data is an integral part of what we're doing, and I think is not being leveraged to the level that it needs to be.
On that same kind of point, and a topic that's been spoken about on this area is the role of the professional within that, because obviously the better these gadgets are getting, and the programming being generated potentially through AI or a lot cheaper than a PT could do it. How do you see the role of the PT or the gym operator changing, and how has it already changed? And where do you see the future of that going? What does their role look like in this changing world where tech is sort of almost can be seen as bypassing them?
No, it's a really good question, and I think it really depends on. Let me take a step back. I think a lot of it is around searching for identity. I think the gym industry, the people within the gym industry are right now recognizing that um, the game has changed, right? The game has changed, the platform has changed, and they're trying to identify and see, you know, who are we and how do we best serve our members? How do we best recruit new people? But their identity has they have to figure out what their identity is. Now, to your question around is technology bypassing a lot of what they did? I mean, sure, I think it has, but it also has in many adjacent industries. I mean, if you look
Yeah.
at cable news and cable TV, before that it was just on regular airways. Then you had cable, you kind of had satellite have a brief moment there, but now it's all digital, it's all streaming, right? You look at, Hulu or YouTube, and I'm sure you have different platforms in the UK, but most people today stream, they don't even have the cable. You look at cell phones and having a landline. Like who has a landline anymore?
Uh,
Right, move all to mobile. You look at the development of mobile. I mean, who's got a flip phone anymore, and how much more do you do for fun? How productive can it be throughout your day? But here's the thing: we are still watching TV, in a different format. We're still engaging with content. We are still on our phones, um, and we're still getting work done and being productive instead of having to carry around a heavy laptop. Now I might be able to do a quick response on my phone. So the task is still there, the job is still there, but how you deliver it and how you consume it has changed. So there's always going to be a need for a gym. There's always going to be a need for PTs and experts around the gym, but what their goal is and how they do the job and how they deliver it are going to change. I mean, it would like be saying, even if you go back about 30 years when music became free on the internet, if you remember an app called Napster when I was in college, Napster was all the rage, 1998 in undergrad, and everyone thought that how are we going to now change music licensing and how are artists ever going to get paid? And if artists don't get paid, it doesn't encourage new people from coming into the business. Look at where we are today. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, depending on your preference in music, I mean, you might like I like the 80s or the 90s, but music is back. You've had, I mean, a lot of people talk about great music in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. You kind of had this other year in between where you have a couple of good bands, and now music is back. It's so rich, and in a lot of ways, people get more. We're experiencing it so much more. Everyone had these concerns around, well, if you can't go to the record store and buy an album, your opening day is going to be different. Are people going to get as excited about artists? And look at what Taylor Swift and Beyonce and a lot of new people have also done. It's actually opened up the doors for new artists to come in, and they're making more money than ever before. They're making more money than ever before. You've got your first billion. I mean, Taylor Swift
uh,
is her net worth is over $1 billion. Jay-Z is over $1 billion, and Beyonce is approaching that. So no, I think it's just an evolution of it. That is our industry. So you could either be on the side of the artists who are going to say, I'm never going to do digital. I'm never going to put my platform online. I'm never going to do that. But then you will be a dinosaur, right? You will be extinct. Or you could say, I have to change. And a lot of these incredible artists who were here throughout this evolution, someone like Taylor Swift actually has pushed legislation towards that. You look at some of the innovation happening with AI, even around movies and content, and the legislation and what the Screen Guild and these other associations have put together to protect the writers and producers. It allows for AI to come in while also protecting the original content. So we are so far behind industries that are adjacent to us,
right.
in which evolution happens. Instead, we're just trying to say we're trying to protect our turf. And if you just try to protect your turf, you're going to be stomped over. And you're right, consumers will bypass you through technology. But if you're part of the change, you can actually accelerate consumers to achieving better health outcomes. And I'm hoping that's what we're trying to do with the brands that we work with. And events like yours, I think, encourages that conversation and encourages that evolution But yeah, I think a change has to happen.
Yeah, it's a big point that we spoke about at our last event is sort of leaning into it and not trying to keep it in the shadow as if it's not happening. It's kind of your role within the ecosystem will change, and that change is happening drastically. But the point they were kind of making is that you become almost the human trait, which is the coach, the transformation coach. Like AI can't replace that human skill. That's always going to be the bit. So it's kind of and data alone isn't just the motivation. You're paid for your accountability and those kind of elements, isn't it? So it's kind of the better you can lean into it and understand it and get it to almost outsource the bits that you don't want to do or can be done a lot quicker, or the level of insight that you can gain on a person rather than just knowing, okay, this person's just walked into my gym. I know they haven't been for 3 weeks. You know exactly what they've been up to, how they've been sleeping, how they all this kind of
Exactly.
bigger picture
That,
view.
that that's right. That's right. I mean, for example, I've got a few intense weeks of travel coming up, and I know that I'm going to be in Seattle. I'm going to be up in your neck of the woods twice over the next 3 weeks. I'm going to Ireland, then to London. So I am already aware of things like my sleep score is going to be impacted. I had an incredible sleep score over the weekend, but I know that there's impact going to happen, and through that, I'm changing my sleep schedule, my diet, my training, my work schedule, but all of that just took years of training. And I feel like, I'm incredibly privileged to be around people like you and some of the foremost minds in the industry. I've got the best of everything, the best knowledge, access to literally anything I want, the best, wearables and equipment, and I have a gym downstairs, all the things, right? But I still need the help. Now, how can you take that customization and bring it onto it? I think you're absolutely right. I mean, even if you look at this Ghent study that was done, which led to the formation of so many things, community, right? Having the wearable plus the community was the most important thing. So you can't just say, well, just the trainer. No, but the trainer, and it's plus, plus, plus. It's what are the other levers that need to be pulled. But I agree, the human connection is unbeatable, because if you go back to what we talked about near the top of this podcast, the psychological connection, that's a real barrier that we have to work through. So I agree that there's still a significant role for people in the industry.
Something we're excited to launch at PerformX 2025 is a big centerpiece, the gym of the future. So we want to show people what's coming down the line. And based on our conversation today, what do you think designers should be considering building into this future where you've got ultra personalization or wearables or data? Kind of what kind of stuff are you seeing coming down the line for the gym floor itself?
Yeah. This topic of the gym of the future is one that is near and dear, and I would say over the last 18 months, we've been engaged by some of the largest brands, which I'm not comfortable mentioning on the podcast, but some of the largest brands to really think about that very topic. In fact, it's called
Mm.
Innovating the Gym of the Future. And we are a product focused digital agency. But what they're having us do is rethink everything from the front desk. I'll take a step back. Your commute to the gym. What does the experience look like when you're at home or the office and you're leaving for the gym? What does that digital experience look like? How do we get you so that you're most effective? They want to touch you from there to when you walk in the gym. It's
Yeah.
influencing the commute. It's influencing parking or transportation, whether you take public transportation or you're parking. It's influencing your supplementation. What are you drinking? What are you eating? It's influencing the layout of the gym design, right? Real estate has gotten very expensive in terms of, per square footage all over the world. Even if you are in a developed country or a developing country, real estate is at a premium. It's influencing crowd flows, how people come in when they work out. It's influencing roles in the gym. So think about things like the front desk staff, right? So a lot of times, when you walk into the gym, you're greeted by someone in a role that it has the highest turnover in the gym, which is your front desk staff. Typically has the highest turnover in the gym. Yet that person is in charge of recruiting you,
Uh,
maybe giving you a tour, in charge of retaining you if people come up to say they want to cancel it. are they the best equipped? Or maybe they're just going to walk up and say, hey, I'm here because I want to gain strength. I want to lose weight. And now you're putting that kind of pressure and burden on someone who probably is very well intentioned and wants to be helpful, but they don't have the tools available to them. Yet we've got this plethora of digital options available. So how can the gym leverage that? And even if you think about the front desk, why do you have to scan your barcode in, right? Should you not be able to walk in? I mean, if global entry exists here in the US where I don't even have to open my passport. I mean, my passports are going to last long and long because I'm getting less and less stamps, but they're using a combination of face recognition, my itinerary, and to validate and verify me. If global entry can work that way, why am I still scanning a
Uh,
key tag for the gym? It doesn't make any sense, right? Then when you go into the gym, how can the gym be dynamic in their offering, such as that, again, talk about even the modern day gym of the Gold's Gym in Venice, where you had your strength area with slip-rise equipment, you had your free weight area, your function area, you had your cardio equipment. That's really not how people work out anymore. Right? People kind of take on a station and instead of walking around in a gym, right? They are now kind of getting what they need and staying together. Well, what does that change? Well, by walking around, it's almost like walking around in an office. You get to bump shoulders, you get to talk to someone, it creates community, it creates
uh,
interaction. You get to learn about, hey, can I work in with you? Right? And then you have a conversation around who are you? What kind of things are you doing? There's interaction
uh,
that the original gym concept was designed to have intentionally, that now they're basically creating their own little pods and they're working out for 30, 45, 60 minutes on their own with their headphones on and then they're leaving. Well, how do you change your layout such as that you can encourage the community? Because again, see it again study that happened. Community means a lot.
yes.
So if people are intentionally carving themselves out, how do you kind of put it in a way where they could still bump into each other, right? So gym layouts are changing. So when you think about the gym of the future, it's a topic that I could speak for hours and hours because we're working with so many brands that are doing incredible things to address the subjects that we're talking about on this podcast. But I am really excited about it because I cannot think of, and I think I might have mentioned this to you via email or the last time we spoke, but I cannot think of another event that put the Gym of the Future concept
Yeah.
as a centerpiece of your event. Anytime that I've seen it before, it's kind of been off to the corner. It's kind of been, we've got a special exhibit over here that's called the Gym of the Future. But kind of, I think putting it as a centerpiece is essential because it really what needs to happen. We need to rethink everything from the layout to the journey to engagement to equipment selection, the height of the ceiling, the ventilation, the flooring. I mean, everything needs to be intentional. Even locker rooms need to be rethought of. Like
Uh,
to me, having men and female locker rooms again, in some countries this has to work. Countries like Saudi Arabia, where you still have to have separate facilities, but in other countries where we don't have those cultural restrictions, why not have shared stalls? Why can't we not be a bit more inclusive around different people? I mean, it's happening in boutique fitness today. So the gym of the future needs to meet consumers where they are today. I think there's never been a greater time to talk about this topic, and I'm really excited to see what people have to say in February at the event.
brilliant. Yeah, I think that's a brilliant answer. I think yeah, a few things on there. I think where you highlighted on the front desk staff and that high turnover role is something that obviously the hospitality faces a lot, and it's down to you can imagine whatever you want in your office. Of the product can be this and this, but if the person delivering it isn't bought in or not of a high enough standard to deliver that service, it all falls down kind of at that point. Um, so yeah, I think it's such an interesting topic, and like you said, revisiting that whole journey to the modern consumer, probably a lot of it is just hasn't changed for years and years. It's just we do the way we do things, or they have, a lot of people joke around these touch points and journeys that brands have, but none of it ever gets delivered. So it's kind of here's the customer journey from point A to point, whereas actually, making that fundamental and actually a key part of the brand is so key. And as you said again, that comes down to those front desk, like every touch point, and that being, if technically enable that person who's just started to know your name, how many times you've been in, whether you're you're just on a milestone visit, how amazing that's going to make that person feel versus, the person that just goes, oh yeah, welcome, as if you're just your first day kind of thing. It's all yeah, all touch points talking to each other to kind of create this ultimate journey that suits the modern consumer. So yeah, and on your point around PerformX, I think that is something we always aim to try and do, is be at the cutting edge of things and finding the voices that are the voices that matter, and the things that should be spoken about. So we try and aim to set our audience up for the year and beyond. So they come to us with the first show of the year, they understand everything they need to learn to get them going and and nail 2025 and beyond. So I think that's going to be a massive shift. Um, and on the point of trends in the States, I think this is an important one for our evolution this year. I think last year the show just gone, we had Dr. Jonathan, who we flew over, who was brilliant, Jonathan Leary, talking on how the recovery concept and how much further on that is in the States than here. But yeah, we're always fascinated to hear what's going on in the States. A lot of our key operators do big excursions out there to find out what's going on, and fact-finding mission. And on a recent podcast, yourself and Matthew did, you talked about the premiumization in New York and how that has really shifted. Can you talk me through what you're seeing out there? I mean, something that fascinated me straight away was the Equinox $40,000 a year membership and things like that. So yeah, I'd love to hear a bit of what you're seeing out there.
Yeah, it's interesting because people talk about the states as an entity when really we are highly localized and regionalized. So while I would love to say that there's been this adaptation or evolution of fitness and wellness across the country, that's not really the case. But what we do have are really strong pockets around the
Mm.
country, and I probably would put New York as being the first and foremost, LA being second, and then probably followed by cities like Washington, D.C., where I'm based out of, Miami, maybe Chicago and Boston. I mean, it's in that kind of order. Um, but yeah, New York over the last couple of years, look, in New York and LA have always kind of been at the forefront of new innovation, new thinking, really because I think they're both for different reasons, but they're coastal cities. They tend to attract a very international audience. So in a lot of industries, that's kind of been the economic engines for those industries uh, in our country. But you're absolutely right. I also think that New York, one has the benefit of having a great public transportation system, and it's a very condensed kind of city. So yeah, you could have a brand like Continuum, which is a $10,000 a month membership, or Equinox's $40,000 a year membership, or Jonathan and Remedy Place, who is on the cusp of opening up their second location in New York in a premium recovery offering. Um, you know, you see some of these happen, and I think to me it's a lot of like having the Bentleys or the Lamborghinis or the Ferraris or the Rolls Royce, right? You need a lot of the innovation and learnings happen from these premium products where you've got a cohort and a segment that has the ability to spend a premium, and they could spend $1,000, plus more a month to achieve an incremental improvement in a particular category, right? Just like if you bought a luxury hyper sports car, you'll pay for that, but really it's incrementally better than a $60,000 product in the car industry. So you're seeing some of that innovation happen in New York, but really what I'm looking at, just like in high fashion, right? You see a lot of innovation happen in the premium high fashion brands. Think like Hermes, Chanel, Louis Vuitton. But in 4 or 5 years, those trends come down to Old Navy and Banana Republic and some of these more accessible brands, and you find them in your department store. That same thing is happening here. So even thinking about the gym of the future, recovery is something that has been a really important point where you're seeing recovery more accessible, different forms of recovery, whether it is percussion guns massage chairs, supplements, right? The massive growth of greens that's happened over the last 5 years, all of it. But I do think a lot of the evolution and the innovation happens to the premium end. So if you are a consumer and if you're kind of almost willing to be the guinea pig and really have the best of the best, you will get that. And I'm not saying that there is no snake oil. I've had a chance to look at all these solutions in pretty good detail and go through some of these experiences. It is very good. And if you are privileged enough, such as that you could, afford these and have access to some of the best resources in the world, these brands have scoured the world to find that for you. In Equinox's case, they've done a fantastic integration with a product called Function Health. And that's a part of this package. And you get access to the best of their staff and trainers and dietitians as a part of this premium offering, and also some of their best and premium clubs. And that's kind of how they packaged it in. So yes, $40,000 a year is a lot. But at the end of it, some people can't really put a price on their health and fitness. And if you've got the means to afford that, that's great. But what I'm really excited about is what learnings do we get from that can then be democratized and made more accessible. And that's happening also at a very rapid pace, which then spurs more innovation on the top end.
Yes. Yeah. I really like that reference to, looking to the high growth brands in other sectors and how it drips down. Yeah, that's a super good analogy for it. But yes, no, really interesting. Really, really interesting.
Yeah.
We are at time. Unfortunately, I could sit and listen to you all day. It's been absolutely fascinating. But we obviously will be on again next month, which I'm looking forward to already.
I think in person, right? We're going to do it in
We're going to
person.
do it in person. Yes, yeah. So Mo's coming over to join us for our advisory board session, which help start fleshing out and shaping the PerformX 2025 speaker schedule, which is going to be our best and most ambitious one yet. We've got, if you haven't seen our announcement yet, we've got so we evolved into the Business of Fitness show for our 2024 show just gone, and our aim is to really build on that and take things up a notch, make the show even more strategic, become the place, the epicenter where business is done, decisions are made, the right people meet each other and connect. And a few key changes there. We're evolving our VIP lounge. So it's a real luxury space for those business leaders from the UK and beyond. We've obviously got a new home. We're now in Birmingham, which has its own airport on site and very well connected train stations. So we're going to be building a much more global audience with speakers and attendees. And our new feature we're super proud of is our boardroom. So we're going to have a behind closed doors room where sessions can take place between the leaders, where you're not on stage. So it's very like it's a real conversations can shape there, like they can bounce ideas off each other, round table discussions, that kind of thing. So alongside that and our gym of the future, and of course the VIP after party, it's going to be it's shaping up to be a serious show. So yeah, very excited to get planning with you next month.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to it. And I guess for those of us coming over from the States, where is Birmingham in relation to London?
So
It's a couple
Birmingham,
hours away.
yeah, it's probably about an hour up. It's the Midlands, so it's the centre of the UK, which means for us you can attract the whole of the UK. So you've got a lot of Manchester's probably where you're describing your kind of two key locations for gym evolution. Ours are London and Manchester. Manchester's like super cool city. It was kind of when you talk about the 90s music scene, it was kind of
Yeah.
Manchester became the kind of pop culture with the football clubs and the
Hmm.
and that evolution has evolved. And I always like visiting Manchester because it's just something really cool about it. So I think being in the centre of that, we're then able to attract all the London operators, the northern operators. The UK is obviously a hell of a lot smaller than the States, so you can drive the whole thing in. I don't know. You can get to uh, Scotland in six or it's 6 hours. So it's not a crazy big country, but I think being in that central location means anyone can get there probably within an hour. Like from different places, flights,
Incredible.
or it just makes it so accessible. and it's a much bigger venue, so we can do what we want in terms of the build. So we've got some really cool plans for how we build it out. We're gonna have auditoriums for the speakers with super cool lighting and effects, just to kind of match the level that we want to put on the stage, kind of thing. So yeah, it's yeah, very exciting.
Sounds incredible. Looking forward to it.
Great stuff. And yeah, brilliant. Really enjoyed our conversation, Mo, and looking forward to the next one.